Sit down and strap in because you're about to experience driving television.
Welcome to Driving Television. I'm Lacey Elliott.
And I'm Zach Spencer. On today's show, Double Trouble. We have the Honda Civic and the Civic SI.
The Civic's been the best-selling car in Canada for 13 years, and we'll see if it can keep its #1 spot.
Straight ahead on Driving Television.
This is Driving Television with your hosts, Zach Spencer and Lacey Elliott. Also on today's show, Zach travels to New Hampshire and takes the new Ford Fiesta on a rally course. Can it handle what we throw at it? Production vehicle for the Driving Television crew is provided by Nissan Canada.
Now, when a car company has a bestseller on their hands, sometimes when it's time to reintroduce it, they can overthink things. Some companies will totally redo the whole car, while others are happy to tweak and refresh.
This is the case with the Honda Civic. The Civic's been the best-selling car in Canada for 13 years. Now, the 2012 model might look very similar to the one that it's replacing, but there have been some small modifications and refinements made. But the big question is, will it be enough to attract new buyers?
At the end of last season, we had a first drive of the Civic sedan and SI models at the vehicle launch in Washington, D.C. Now we have both cars back to drive them again.
The 2012 Civic is basically the same size as the outgoing model. It's slightly shorter, but there's slightly more interior space. More on that in a minute. The body is instantly recognizable as a Civic, but on closer inspection, there are some differences. There are now accent lines that run the length of the car, and new front and rear lights, bumpers, and trim details. The front end looks similar to Honda's FCX Clarity hydrogen car, a look that Honda's going to use more in the future.
Now, Lacey, some very small design features, but they actually make the drivability that much better. See, the front window pillars are actually thinner on this new model. Outward visibility is better, and just around the corner you see the other side window between the front pillar and the mirror. The glass area is much bigger than the previous car, so you get to see the outward visibility is greatly improved. Honda also decided to introduce a whole family of Civic models instead of staggering them over several years. They include a sedan and coupe using the base engine, then a sedan and coupe version using the SI Performance model we have here. Prices start at $14,990 and top out at just under $26,000.
When the last model Civic was introduced in 2006, there was a lot of criticism about its very fashion-forward dash design. Honda's still using the digital speedometer located right underneath the windshield, and there's a second dial cluster located in the normal position behind the steering wheel. The idea of having information just below the driver's eye line is a good one. So much so that Honda has expanded the window information area to include a small changeable screen for things like radio information, phone connectivity, and car information. This is available on all but the base model. The area occupied by the radio buttons has been cleaned up and is more user-friendly. However, the optional navigation screen and entertainment unit has small buttons that look inexpensive and don't work seamlessly. Also, with the competition using soft-touch materials, the Civic's still awash in hard, cheap-looking plastic. If you're in the market for a compact car, you've probably read reviews from other journalists who've taken Honda to task for not updating enough.
Sure, at first glance, the updates look minimal, but this is still a very good car. And you know what? It's a strong contender for anybody's money. You know, a lot could be forgiven for having a similar looking car on the outside and the inside if Honda had revamped their whole drivetrain, but they haven't. They've stuck with the tried and true. They have the same 5-speed automatic transmission in this car carried over, where a lot of the competition have moved forward and gone exclusively to 6-speed automatic transmissions. Honda's engineers claim that this is to save weight, but it might have more to do with Honda not having a 6-speed available in their parts system. By the way, Toyota's Corolla uses just a 4-speed gearbox. Now, the no change in drivetrain isn't exactly true. It is different if you get the SI model. Lacey will touch on that in a moment. But for the base car, the majority of the sales will go to this engine. It's 140 horsepower, the same as before. It drives wonderfully, but it still is noisy. There's quite a bit of road noise, not so much from the engine, but from the tires. There could be better sound insulation. That's really my biggest complaint about the drive of this car. Consumer Reports recently dropped the Civic as a recommended buy, and I think it's kind of silly. They knocked the car for lack of change. If the car was good enough last year, and there have been relatively few changes, then why not this year? It seems that Honda is getting punished for staying the course. Here's the analogy I used with this new Honda Civic. If you drop this car in someone's driveway and they had never heard of the Honda Civic and it didn't have that, long history, you would drive the car and you would say, this is a nice driving car. It's an excellent vehicle. I really like the way it moves down the road. The problem is this vehicle doesn't live in a vacuum. There's all of the competition out there that's marching forward at a lightning pace, and Honda has decided to refresh their new Civic. This might have been a cost-saving measure on Honda's part, but it also is probably foolish.
The truth is, the Civic is a fantastic car to drive. Don't let all this chatter confuse the issue about this really important point. The Honda Civic is a well-made car, it's fun to drive, and it does everything well. The body is lighter due to stronger, thinner steel. The retuned independent suspension is very connected, as is the direct steering feel. Not a big change from the outgoing car, but modified to be a better overall machine. The biggest changes in the Civic lineup were saved for this car, the SI. Gone is the high-strung 2-liter engine from the last car, which was buzzy and needed to be wrung out in order to gain the most performance. Instead, Honda has dropped a 2.4-liter engine, basically a modified Acura TSX motor, into this car. This engine is one of the best 4 cylinders on the road, and in this car it transforms the experience. It's more sedate in daily driving, but when pushed, it can easily utilize the 201 horsepower. Handling is better due to bigger wheels and stiffer suspension. If you're considering a Civic, the SI is a very nice package, but it's not cheap at almost $26,000. Well, there is some tough competition in this class, but I have to be honest, I think the Civic still has the best ride quality overall. The 5-speed automatic is good, but I love the 6-speed manual. It's so smooth and so much more fun to drive.
Well, Lacey, this Honda Civic is in for the fight of its life. 13 years in a row, #1, but there are certain months where it's fallen well down the sales, and it might not even be the #1 car at the end of the year. Hot new products like the Elantra that shot right to the very top, the Chevy Cruze, the Ford Focus, and even the Volkswagen Jetta are all brand new, flashier models than this sort of staid-looking Honda Civic. Should it still be on your shopping list if you're looking for a compact car?
You know what, Zach? Absolutely, hands down, yes. I mean, I said it before, I'll say it again, the Civic is definitely one of the best handling cars in this segment. It's got responsive steering, smooth brakes, and on the SI model with the 2.4-liter engine matched to the 6-speed manual, it is just so much fun to drive. And I really like the new look and feel of the steering wheel, which brings me into a couple of things that I don't like. We spend all of our time sitting in the car, looking at the dash, touching the buttons, and unfortunately there's just too much hard plastic. And when you compare it to cars like the Cruze and the Elantra, actual layout just doesn't do it for me.
You know what, I agree with you. The #1 thing with the Civic is, Honda spends the money on the way the vehicle drives. It's got independent rear suspension, it's got better brakes than many of the other cars, and it drives well, the body is tight, you can throw it into corners, all the things Lacey touched on. So if you're somebody that's engaged in your driving to work and back, this car delivers. The 4-cylinder in this car with the 5-speed automatic, they work so well together. In fact, I would take this older technology compared to, say, Ford's new dual-clutch 6-speed in their Ford Focus, which seems a little bit sloppy. This is very crisp. Also, this vehicle has a long history in Canada. Canadians have loved this car for many years. It's got great resale. It's known to be reliable. So all of those things are going in its favor. I agree with Lacey. You know what? The inside is plastic fantastic. They could have spent more money in there. And also the updates on the outside, Lacey. You know what? From 10 paces, it looks like exactly the same car. They could have done a little bit more. Is this the best they could have come up with in the design studio? I don't think so. But still, you know what? Civic, worth a shot.
See our reviews of the entire Honda lineup, including the Civic, at drivingtelevision.com.